Hello, all my chickadees. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different for my channel, and we're going to be reading a Danmei. Yay! This one is called Little Mushroom, Book 1, Judgment Day, and we're going to be reading Chapter 1. This has been published by Peach Flower House, and I'm going to have a link down below so you guys can go check it out for yourself if you find it interesting. I personally have both of the books, special editions. And we're just going to jump on in and check it out. We're only reading chapter 1 today, okay? Alright, chapter 1. You're just a tiny little mushroom. The cave was dark and damp, with only weak fluorescence from the plants providing illumination. Tangled vines clung to the cliff face, deep green, purple, and inky black. They resembled snakes tied into large knots. A black insect with 6 stiff wings and 3 proboscis barged into the cave, its flight path erratic. In the next second, a massive dark purple bulge suddenly appeared amidst the tangled vines and swiftly split open, mouth-like, before snapping shut around the flying insect. The vines gradually began to wiggle, and the part that had bulged out retreated, bit by bit, until it returned to its original state. Within the cave was the sound of that of flapping wings. A drop of mucus, translucent strands trailing in its wake, fell from the ceiling and plopped into the sticky moss below. The moss began to subtly squirm, and the drop of sparkling mucus vanished into the ground as it was rapidly absorbed. Alright, there's a lot of ecosystem going on. Things are eating other things, but hey, this is life in a cave. All the organisms have to find a way to live, right? In a corner, lit up by the fluorescence of green fungi, a tide of white poured forth from the crevice in the rock and soil, blanketing a large area. It was a snow-white mycelium. It grew, spread out, and extended hundreds of millions of tendrils that then crept towards the center of the cave, gathered together, merged, and elongated to form a figure. Oh! He turned into a human! A single foot stepped upon the thick and delicately soft moss and sank down into it, leaving only a snow-white ankle visible. Anchu looked at his ankle. Though his human body was sustained by a skeleton, muscles, blood vessels, and had mobile joints, it was not flexible to the human skeleton's limitations. Layers of keratin formed round into translucent fingernails. Those were the vestigial remnants originating from the sharp claws of beast. He lifted a leg and took a step forward. The damp, springy moss pressing down by his foot gathered together again after he left, looking like earthworms standing erect. This time, he stepped on something different, a skeletal human arm. In the darkness, Anzua looked at the skeleton. Fungi and vines had already taken root in the depths of its bone. Deep green vines wound around the hip and the leg bones, while colorful small mushrooms resembling flowers in bloom grew upon the ribs. Fluorescent mushrooms emerged from its empty eye sockets and spare teeth. The green glow they gave off was like fine shifting sand, very blurry in the misting cave. Oh. Okay, so this mushroom turned into a human. He took on human form, and apparently this is his first time as a human because he's like, oh, well, that bone don't bend that way. And, he's like, okay, yeah, let me check all this out. But there is another skeleton in this cave. Was that another one trying to form into a human, or was that like a traveler that got lost? Questions, questions, questions. Ancha looked at it for a long time. At last, he bent down and picked up a backpack made of animal skin that had been laying next to the skeleton. Ah, there we go. The contents of the backpack were unaffected by moisture. There were a few articles of clothing, human food and water, and a blue electronic chip half the size of a human palm that was engraved with a string of numbers: 32611705114. 3 days ago, the skeleton was a live human. 32611705114. A young human rasped brokenly as the weak green fluorescence illuminated the contours of his face. My ID number. This is my ID card, and only by having it can I go back to the human base. Anzua asked, Can I help you go back there? The human smiled, and the fingers of his right hand dropped to rest at his side. The chip tumbled from his hand and disappeared in the uneven moss. As he leaned back against the crags, he lifted his head and pressed his left hand to his chest, where a huge wound had opened up. Pale splinters of bone pierced through the chest, exiting from the back, and the surrounding skin had already festered. Part of it was gray, with cottony flesh covering the surface of the bone splinters, while the rest exhibited a blackish-green hue and released a continuous drip of dark liquid in time with the rhythm of his breathing. After a few breaths, he said softly, I can't go back anymore, little mushroom. His shirt was dyed, though. His skin looked pallid. His lips were chapped, and his body trembled at irregular intervals. Anzua looked at him, unsure of what to say. In the end, he only murmured this young human's name. Anzua? He had just heard the human language now. The human looked down at his own body. Apart from the pus and blood, he was also covered with snow-white hyphae, which were part of Anchu, which were part of Ancho's body. The hyphae meandered along, adhering securely to the wounds on Anzua's limbs and torso. Fragmented scraps of knowledge unfolded within Ancho's mind. After a 5-second-long conversation, he understood that the pollution index referred to the speed at which genes transformed. Now, human genes were flowing into his body, along with Anzua's blood. Perhaps, once I'm dead, and you've completely emptied my body, you'll obtain a lot more things. Anzua looked at the cave ceiling, a smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Then it seems I will have done something meaningful as well. Though I don't know if it'll be good or bad for you. Without saying anything, Anchu moved his entire body towards Anzua. He hugged Anzua's shoulder with his newly grown human arm, and many hyphae flowed forward and piled up next to Anzua to support his sagging body. No, he's dying! And I'm doing my best with pronouncing the names, okay, guys? Cut me a break, please. The only sounds in the quiet cave came from the dying human's gasping breath. After a long time passed, Anzua finally spoke up again. I'm someone whose life had no meaning. I don't have any outstanding qualities whatsoever, so it's very normal that they abandoned me. In truth, I'm very happy not to go back to the human base. Just like the wilderness, they're both places where only a human with value can live on. I've wanted to die for a long time already. I just didn't think I'd encounter a gentle creature like you before I died, little mushroom. Anchu didn't really understand the meaning of those words, such as value or die. He only caught that phrase once more. Human base. As he leaned against Anzua's shoulder, he said, I wish to go to the human base. Why? Anzua asked. Anchu lifted his left arm slightly and made a gesture with his fingers, seeming as though he wanted to grab a bit of the air, but he grabbed nothing at all. It was just like his body. His body was empty. A massive void had formed in the innermost depths of his body, impossible to feel and impossible to heal, and in its wake was an infinite hollowness and panic that clung to him day in and day out. Sorting out the words of the human language, he slowly said, "I lost my spore. Spore? My seed." He didn't know how to explain. Every mushroom would have spores in its lifetime. Some would have countless spores, while others would just have one. A spore was a mushroom seed. It would grow out of the lamia, be dispersed by the wind to any random place within the jungle, take root wherever it landed, and turn into a new mushroom. Then this mushroom would also grow up little by little and have its own spores. Raising its spores to maturity was a mushroom's sole lifelong mission. But he had lost his only spore when it was far from maturing. He lost his baby! Anzua slowly turned his head, and Anchu could hear his bones click like an old piece of human machinery when he did so. "Don't go there," the human's raspy words sped up. "You'll die." Anchu recited the word once again. "Die? Only humans can enter the human base. You won't be able to escape the judge's eyes." Anzua coughed a few times, the drew labored breath. "Don't go, little mushroom." Confused, Anchu said, The human abruptly grabbed Anzua's afe with great force, and his harsh breathing became more hurried. "Listen to me." After violently trembling and gasping for breath, Anzua closed his eyes. In a very soft voice, he said, "You don't have any attack power or means of defending yourself. You're just a tiny little mushroom." Sometimes, Anchua deeply regretted telling Anzua about wanting to go to the human base. If he hadn't told Anzua wouldn't have spent his final moments on deterring him. Perhaps he would have listened to Anzua tell a story. Or perhaps he could have taken Anzua away from this dark cave for one last look at the fluctuating aurora in the sky. But Anzua's eyes would never open again. The brief memory disappeared into the air, just like how Anzua's life suddenly disappeared from the world. In front of Anchu, there remained only a snow-white skeleton. But he had to go against Anzua's wishes regardless. He slowly uncurled the fingers of one hand. A brassy, cylindrical bullet shell made of metal lay quietly upon the delicate skin and pale lines of his palm. It was very heavy, and there were some incomprehensible but definitely unusual grooves on its surface. He had found it at the place where he lost his spore, and ever since then, he hadn't let go of it. Oh, somebody shot something. Is that how Anzua died? Did he get shot? Supposing there was still a 1 in 10,000 chance that he could get his spore back, then this 1 in 10,000 chance lay with the bullet shell, a human creation. With a soft sigh, he put the bullet shell in the animal skin backpack Anzua left behind, then bent down and picked up the clothes that Anzua had once worn. A light gray long-sleeve shirt, stained with blood, hardened black overalls, and black leather boots. After doing all those things, he walked towards the cave exit. As he walked, the slightly baggy clothes rubbed against his skin, and tiny electric currents traveled from the nerve endings hidden beneath his skin to his core. And Anchu, who taken human form for the first time, was unused to it, and he frowned as he rolled up the loose shirt's sleeves. The vines that had accumulated along the long and winding cave walls jostled each other, but when Anzua passed through, they receded like a tide and settled on the cave ceiling. 3 turns later, a moisture-laden wind blew in. The mushroom pushed aside the withered vines dangling in front of the cave mouth, and vast swaths of mushrooms, his kindred, stretched out as far as the eye could see. They seemed to extend up to the sky, and everything was quiet, with not a sound to be heard. Dim daylight shone in from between the cover of the mushroom caps, and the gray sky twinkled, a lustrous, volatile green. Anchu smelled rainwater, fog, snake sloth, and decaying plants. Okay. I wonder if this is the first time he's ever left the cave. Well, I mean, he was a mushroom, and this is his first time taking human form, so of course, this is the first time he left his cave. And he did take human form, and he was absorbing it from Anzua, so he looks like Anchua now, right? Because he took his DNA and everything. Interesting. So the real Anchua has died. Anzua, has died. And Anchul has now taken human form. He's a little mushroom. He's a little baby mushroom. But he took this human form and now he's venturing out. He wants to go to the human city or human settlement place, whatever. Base, that's what it was. So he can see if he can find his spore. His spore is basically his unborn child. This is a daddy looking for his baby. Okay. I had to take a little bit of a water break, so I thought we'd break it down and, just talk about it for a second. This is my first time reading through this part as well, okay? So, you guys are experiencing this with me, and I'm bouncing what I think off of you. It was still evening. He sat down beneath the cap of the light gray mushroom nearest to the cave entrance and took out a yellowed map from the backpack. The map was covered with blocks of color that varied in shade, which indicated the degree of danger in the different areas. Anzua had once pointed out to Anchu the approximate location of the cave they were in. It was the darkest part of the entire map, which means it was a region that boasted 6-star danger level and pollution levels, and it was named Abyss. On the map, the area containing the abyss had also been marked with many strange symbols. So Anchu checked them, one by one, against the legend in the lower right corner. The marks meant that the abyss was scattered, dense growths of mushrooms, cannibal vines, cannibal shrubs, simple mammalian monsters, hybrid mammalian monsters, common reptilian monsters, poisonous reptilian monsters, winged monsters, amphibious monsters, hybrid polymorphic monsters, humanoid monsters, and so on. Oh my goodness. So there's a lot going on in this area. Oh no. Our little mushroom. He's in danger. At the same time, within the abyss, there was also geographic features, such as canyons, hills, mountains, abandoned human cities, and the remnants of roads. The top of the map corresponded to north, and his gaze traveled all the way up. On the upper right of this colorful map, there was a pure white area marked with a bright red star, and the area's name was written to the right of the star, Northern Base. The green lights in the sky intensified, and the color behind it darkened little by little into pitch blackness. At midnight, Anchu managed with difficulty to recognize the stars in the sky. He knew the brightest one was called Polaris, and it could be used to navigate by. So he pointed the upper-facing arrow on the map's upper left corner towards Polaris, and walked out over decaying wood, fallen leaves, hyphae, and soil, one step at a time. Though it was nighttime, it wasn't dark. In the sky, those shifting green lights, humans called them aurora, illuminated everything up ahead, and all Anchu could see was mushrooms. Yellow ones, red ones, brown ones, all with massive caps. Small ones that clumped thickly together on the mountain rocks, round puffballs that lay scattered on the ground, and would, after maturing, release fog-like clouds of spores. Upon landing, these spores would split open upon the damp fallen leaves and soil, grown to spherical puffballs, just like their mother. There were also mushrooms with no caps, consisting of only white or yellow stems that were either grouped together or radically separated. These swayed in the wind like seaweed. But this was not a world of only mushrooms. Vines, mosses, shrubs, cannibal flowers, and twisted trees quietly concealed themselves in the night. In the jungle of the plants, dark shadows and strange shapes, either humans or animals or fusions of humans and animals, ran, howled, and fought. Animals fought against animals. Animals fought against plants. And plants fought against plants. High and low pitched howls beat against Anchu's eardrums, and the rock and soil were mixed with fresh blood stains of various colors. He witnessed a pine tree bend down its trunk to devour a long snake with jet black scales and two tails. Okay, the tree moved to eat a snake. This place sounds both amazing and terrifying, okay? The tree will eat you. Tree will eat you. This is a dangerous world for a little mushroom. I am worried for our boy. He also saw a massive toad extend and curl its bright red tongue around a flying bat that had human arms growing out of its back. 5 minutes after swallowing the bat, a pair of black wings grew out of the toad's bumpy and slimy back, soft and furled. This was only 1 out of 10,000 sights the mushroom had seen, and he had long ago become used to them. Right at that moment, a gray animal with 4 eyes and a body covered with scales, feathers, and fur walked over. Its head resembled both a crocodile's and a massive wolf's, and 7 teeth protruded from between its lips. It approached Anchu and sniffed him with his blood-red nose. Unmoving, Anchu quietly stayed next to a mushroom and breathed evenly until he had been sniffed all over. The huge monster, seeming to have gained nothing, turned around and lumbered off. Anchu realized that nothing would notice him even if he was using a human form. Perhaps because mushrooms could be found all over the place here, lacked nutritional value, weren't aggressive, and sometimes even contained toxins. So he and they seemed to be creatures from 2 different worlds, peacefully coexisting. He still smells like a mushroom, so the animals are like, nah, I don't want this. Perhaps Anzua had been correct. He was a tiny mushroom. Alright, that was the end of chapter 1. Oh man, it was so descriptive. Oh man, this fantasy world, because it is a fantasy compared to like our world, because all these amazing creatures, it was painted so awesome. I can't find the words, but I loved how it was described. It really felt like you were there and witnessing everything that was going on. And our little mushroom boy, he's absorbed information and everything from this poor human that I'm guessing got lost or got injured and then stumbled his way into the cave and, was gravely injured and died. And he happily took his form. Oh, this is so interesting. What's going to happen when he gets to the human base? Like, he does look like a human, and he does look like one that, worked there, so are they going to just let him in? Does he have, like, the memories of him as well? That's a good question. But anyway, this was chapter 1. I'm very excited to read more of it because I am fully immersed now. It is a 2-book series from what I gather. Both books are now out and available by Peach Flower House, and I'm going to have a link down below so you guys can go check it out. If you like it, leave a comment or like down below, and I'll see if I can read more in the future. And All right, I will leave now. Bye, guys.